Among the pantheon of ancient deities, one stands out as particularly fearsome, infamous for demanding the most horrific of offerings, the sacrifice of children. This deity, often known as Moloch, has woven a terrifying legacy through history, religion, and modern conspiracy theories. But who or what was Moloch? And how did this ancient god transform into a symbol of ultimate cruelty, not just in religious texts, but in the shadowy corridors of modern thought? In this exploration, we'll delve deep into the origins of Moloch, his role in ancient rituals, his demonization in later religious contexts, and his eerie resurgence in contemporary conspiracy theories. This journey will reveal more than just the story of a god. It will expose the darkest fears and anxieties that have haunted humanity for millennia. The origins of Moloch trace back to the ancient Near East, particularly among the Canaanites, a civilization that thrived in the region now known as Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, and parts of Syria and Jordan. The name Moloch is believed to come from the Semitic root MLK, meaning king. However, this was no benevolent ruler. Moloch's reign was one of terror, marked by rituals that horrify even in mere description. Among these rituals, child sacrifice was the most notorious. According to ancient texts, including the Hebrew Bible, children were offered to this god by being passed through the fire. In practice, this meant burning them alive. The most infamous site of these sacrifices was the Valley of Hinnom, near Jerusalem, a place so tainted by these acts that it later became synonymous with hell itself, known as Gehenna. Accounts describe a towering bronze statue with arms outstretched over a blazing fire. Into these searing hands, infants were placed, their lives offered in exchange for divine favor. These sacrifices, it was believed, would secure protection, victory, or prosperity in times of crisis. The horror of these rituals cemented Moloch's reputation as a deity who demanded the ultimate price, a price paid with the lives of the innocent. The Hebrew Bible is unwavering in its condemnation of Moloch worship. The Israelites are repeatedly chastised for falling into this practice, with kings like Ahaz and Manasseh singled out for their participation in these horrific rites. Prophets, like Jeremiah and Ezekiel, railed against these practices, denouncing them as abominations that desecrated the covenant with Yahweh. Jeremiah in particular condemned the high places built in the Valley of Hinnom, where children were sacrificed. He made it clear that such acts were utterly foreign to the worship of Yahweh, something that the true God had never commanded, nor even conceived. This absolute rejection of Moloch worship underscored the horror and revulsion these sacrifices inspired. In these biblical texts, Moloch is more than just a rival deity. He symbolizes the moral and spiritual decay that can consume a society when it turns away from its foundational beliefs. The relentless denunciation of these practices in the Bible reflects the deep-seated fear and loathing that child sacrifice and the God who demanded it provoked among the ancient Israelites. As Christianity spread and evolved, the figure of Moloch underwent a significant transformation. No longer seen merely as a foreign god, Moloch was recast as a demon, a high-ranking force of evil in service to Satan. This shift is vividly captured in John Milton's Paradise Lost, where Moloch is depicted as a fearsome warrior among the fallen angels, advocating for open war against heaven. In Milton's portrayal, Moloch's bloodthirsty nature and his association with human sacrifice make him one of the most terrifying denizens of hell. This demonization of Moloch served multiple purposes. It reinforced the Christian moral framework by casting the gods of other religions as malevolent entities, and it warned of the spiritual dangers of straying from the true faith. By turning Moloch into a demon, early Christians highlighted the perils of idolatry and the moral corruption that followed. Moloch's identity transcends the ancient rituals and religious texts that initially defined him, extending deeply into astrological and esoteric traditions, particularly through his association with the planet Saturn. This connection is crucial for understanding Moloch's broader significance, as it intertwines him with profound aspects of human belief. where celestial bodies influence both earthly events and spiritual realms. The ancient Sumerians, recognized as some of the earliest astronomers, were pivotal in establishing this connection. They meticulously observed the heavens and identified Saturn as a unique celestial body, unlike any other visible planet. Saturn held a dual role in their cosmology. It was seen as the night sun, a dark counterpart to the bright, life-giving sun that dominated the day. This night sun was not associated with warmth and growth, but rather symbolized the shadowy hidden forces governing time, death, and the cycles of destruction and rebirth. Because Saturn's slow and deliberate orbit positioned it farthest from the sun, it became a fitting symbol for these darker, more mysterious aspects of existence. This astrological symbolism was carried forward into later cultures, particularly by the Romans, who personified Saturn as a god. For the Romans, Saturn was not just the ruler of the Golden Age, a time of peace and prosperity, but also the god of time, and with time inevitably comes decay and death. Thus, Saturn was often depicted as an old man wielding a scythe, a grim reminder of the harvest of human life. Considering this duality, it's no surprise that the festival of Saturnalia, celebrated in December, became a key ritual in Roman society. Saturnalia embodied Saturn's dual nature. On one hand, it was a time of joy, feasting and the suspension of societal norms, a brief return to the egalitarianism of the Golden Age. On the other hand, it marked the end of the solar year, representing the death of the old cycle and the arrival of the darkest period of winter. Consequently, the rituals of Saturnalia included sacrifices and the inversion of social roles, symbolizing the chaos that must precede the rebirth of the sun at the winter solstice. In these rites, Saturn, much like Moloch, was honored as a deity presiding over both creation and destruction, embodying the cyclical nature of time and the universe. Saturn's connection to the zodiac sign Capricorn further deepens its association with death and transformation. Capricorn, symbolized by the goat, represents ambition, discipline, and the harsh realities of life. Astrologically, Saturn's rulership over Capricorn emphasizes these themes, highlighting the struggles, limitations, and ultimate mortality that define human existence. Just as the goat ascends the steepest mountains, so too must individuals confront the most challenging aspects of their lives under Saturn's influence. Tying this back to Moloch, his association with Saturn extends beyond mere symbolism and into the realm of esotericism, where ancient deities and celestial bodies are linked through shared themes and characteristics. In this esoteric context, Moloch and Saturn are seen not just as gods of sacrifice and death, but as representations of the darker, more occult forces of the cosmos. These forces are not inherently malevolent, but are essential to maintaining the balance of the universe, governing the cycles of time, decay, and renewal necessary for life to continue. Thus, Moloch's demand for sacrifice can be understood not only in a literal sense, but also as a metaphor for the inner sacrifices required for spiritual growth and transformation. Moreover, Saturn's role in alchemical traditions, where it is associated with lead, the base metal that alchemists sought to transform into gold, mirrors Moloch's symbolic function. Alchemically, this transformation is not just a physical act, but a metaphor for the spiritual journey from base materialism to higher enlightenment. Saturn represents the initial, dark stage of transformation, the negrito or blackening phase, where one must confront and integrate the shadow aspects of their psyche. In a similar vein, Moloch, in his role as a god of sacrifice, embodies the necessity of facing and overcoming the darker aspects of existence. The act of sacrifice, particularly the extreme form associated with Moloch, thus serves as a metaphor for the painful but necessary process of letting go, of surrendering something precious to achieve a greater good. This connection between Moloch, Saturn, and the concept of sacrifice is further highlighted by the esoteric symbol of the black sun. In alchemy and Jungian psychology, the black sun represents the hidden, transformative power of the sun's dark counterpart. This symbol is associated with the shadow side of the psyche, the parts of ourselves that we repress or deny. By confronting these shadow aspects, individuals can achieve a deeper understanding of themselves and ultimately undergo spiritual transformation. Therefore, in Moloch's case, the black sun symbolizes the darker forces of the cosmos that must be acknowledged and integrated into the conscious mind. Although this process is often painful and challenging, it is through such confrontation that true transformation occurs. Moloch, as a symbol of this process, represents the harsh but necessary realities of life, the sacrifices, losses, and inevitable decay that pave the way for renewal and rebirth. Moreover, the esoteric connections between Moloch and Saturn extend into modern occult practices and even conspiracy theories. Some contemporary esotericists view Saturn as a gateway to higher consciousness, a planetary force that governs the transition from material existence to spiritual enlightenment. Within this framework, Moloch's association with Saturn symbolizes the trials and challenges one must face on the path to spiritual awakening. The sacrifices demanded by Moloch in this context represent the inner work required to overcome the ego, detach from the material world, and transcend the fear of death, all of which are essential steps on the journey to spiritual enlightenment. Moloch, a figure rooted in ancient rituals and esoteric traditions, has resurfaced in modern times as a symbol within various conspiracy theories. These theories often portray Moloch as a dark, malevolent entity, worshipped by secretive elites, who allegedly engage in occult practices to maintain power and control over society. But before delving into it, we must say that there is no direct evidence that support these theories. We're just telling it for educational purposes. One of the most prominent conspiracy theories involving Moloch centers around claims that high-profile individuals and secret societies such as the Illuminati or other clandestine groups perform rituals dedicated to Moloch to gain favor or power. These theories suggest that these elites engage in symbolic or even literal child sacrifice, echoing the ancient rites associated with Moloch to appease this dark entity, or to gain control over demonic forces that can grant them wealth, influence, or longevity. A specific example of Moloch's integration into modern conspiracy narratives is the speculation surrounding Bohemian Grove, a private retreat in California where powerful figures from politics, business, and the arts gather annually. Some conspiracy theorists claim that during these gatherings, participants conduct occult rituals in front of a large owl statue, which they allege represents Moloch. The owl, a symbol often associated with wisdom, is controversially reinterpreted as a stand-in for Moloch, reflecting the theorists' belief that these gatherings are not merely social events, but rather ceremonies of power that involve invoking dark forces. The idea of Moloch as a symbol for the elite's hidden worship taps into a broader fear of dehumanization and moral corruption among those in power. These theories often emphasize a stark divide between the ordinary people and the elites who argue, portrayed as willing to sacrifice even the most sacred for their own gain. This narrative is particularly potent in a world where trust in institutions and leaders is frequently undermined by scandals and the perception of increasing inequality. Moreover, the association of Moloch with Saturn and the black sun in esoteric traditions is also incorporated into conspiracy theories. Some theorists claim that the elites harness the dark, destructive energies associated with Saturn and Moloch to influence world events, often pointing to historical and astrological correlations to support their claims. For example, they might argue that significant political or economic crises are timed to coincide with astrological events linked to Saturn, suggesting that these occurrences are part of a deliberate ritualistic attempt to invoke Moloch's power. These theories are often fueled by a mix of ancient symbolism, selective interpretation of events, and a deep mistrust of those in power. The use of Moloch as a central figure in these narratives highlights the enduring appeal of ancient deities and symbols as a way to explain and give shape to modern fears and uncertainties. By framing current events through the lens of Moloch worship, these theories offer a dramatic if often unfounded, explanation for the complexities of global politics and social change. Despite the lack of credible evidence supporting these claims, the idea of Moloch as a dark force behind global elites persists, particularly in online communities where conspiracy theories thrive. These narratives tap into the power of myth and symbol, using Moloch's terrifying image as a tool to make sense of a world that often feels chaotic and beyond the control of ordinary individuals. In this way, Moloch has been resurrected not just as a figure of ancient worship, but as a modern icon of fear, symbolizing the perceived moral and spiritual corruption of those who hold power in today's world. As we unravel the mysteries of Moloch, we confront questions that transcend history and touch the very core of human nature. What other secrets from the past might be shaping our present without us realizing it? If this exploration has left you with more questions than answers, you're in the right place. Join us by subscribing, and let's continue this journey into the unknown together. Are you ready to challenge what you've always taken for granted? Your quest has only just begun.